Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is that on?
Yeah, but I don't know where
We're
it
pausing
actually
for a minute for the
records
technical
to.
hookup
Do you know where it
for
records
the
to?
recording for this meeting.
No, but I've recorded it on my
Okay.
phone too if we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chair.
All right. Then moving on, I think we have an update on the finance department, and I'm presuming, Daniel, you want to make some comments regarding item number 4 as well?
Yeah, so I mean, just to reiterate what I wrote in the action sheet, coming on in June, there's been multiple changes in the finance department, coming in right at the end of audit season and getting that out the door at the end of July, jumping into finalizing the budget, jumping into property taxes. There's just been a lot going on. So trying to keep my head above water while keeping the department above water as well has been challenging, but we've been working towards some progress. So there was 2 new hires in 2023. That was myself and then our accounting clerk. She is just about up to speed. She was hired in March. She's doing all of the accounts payable tasks, and then as of around October, she started cross-training in payroll. And then as time permits, our accounting supervisor has been training her on some daily task journal entries and other things that he had taken over during the interim and pushing them on to her. Like I said, we got through the audit, got through the budget season, and then taxes came, and we saw many, many issues with the tax preparation process. We started with land nav this year. I should say it was the end of last year, and I think it was only one day that it was in service in July for property tax collection. But this would have been the first year that we actually did the calculation process, the tax bill preparation, the mail out, everything through land nav. And I know the mayor and director of administration can speak to it as well. It's just been extremely challenging. Hours and hours of phone calls with the software specialists trying to get tax calculation correct. Importing of assessment data took months. And there's just been multiple municipalities in Milwaukee County that have had issues to where they've even brought it up as a discussion at the monthly ICC meeting. And now LandNav has weekly Zoom meetings with all of the municipalities where they talk about the issues that are ongoing and how they are facilitating and fixing them in order to make the software more accessible and easier to manage with us municipalities. I will say the Treasury Department has worked exceptionally well through the challenges. However, there's just been a lot of additional hours going on work-wise. Unfortunately, they're not compensated because it's all salary positions that are doing that additional work. But it's just been a longer process than expected. Payments are taking a little bit longer to process. Go ahead.
And that was driven primarily by the county, right?
Yes, that's a countywide.
It's required by them, Catalyst and Land Nav, and it has been very challenging to say the least.
But it is a a countywide software that has been implemented, and now all of Milwaukee County is on the Milwaukee County Public Portal instead of us having our own portal as we did last year. And so we've just had a lot of issues.
Is it upgraded or is it completely new?
It's totally different.
It was bought out. Land Nav and Catalyst were bought out by the previous. I don't remember if it was a buyout or if they just changed names, but it's the same company, something along those lines. But the entire county went through this upgrade at the same time together, and I think that may have been where the issue was. Is all of the municipalities were jumping on board at the same time.
6 that existed prior, but yeah.
So
We have any recourse? Probably.
No.
Learn
to work with them.
and that's unfortunate.
One of the things I think Alderman Holfer could attest to, because he was there at the ICC meeting, is that multiple jurisdictions spoke of the difficulties they had. And one of the things is our director of finance put together a 4-page breakdown. So because literally this group stood up from the county in the front and just got hammered They got just, I mean, they just really, and they took it well. They were very receptive, but I thought that wasn't, we didn't need to pile on anymore. I think the more effective way was to provide them with that document, even though it was right in line with everyone else's issues. So ours were not unique, but ours were a little more presented, a little more, understandably that this isn't the group. We're not looking to blame. We just want to fix. And I applaud her, and I already told her that putting a document together because it was very well received.
So we got through that first tax settlement, which was sent out January 15th. We're still collecting our first installment payments until the 31st. We have a grace period through February 7th, I believe. But we still collect payments through May. So that's kind of where we're at with taxes, other than the council did just pass an ordinance that allows for myself to not process any overpayments under $8. More municipalities are putting policies in place where, repayment of overpayments on property taxes, it's just costing more than it is to produce the check, whether it's, the envelope, the check, the labor, everything combined. I think ours was $7.78 is what it costs to run one refund check. And so $8 was the maximum. Now, taxpayers can ask for their refund, but then they will be charged an $8 processing fee if they want their refund under $8. So we've been processing refund payments. We've had an abundance of them this year, and I'm still trying to figure out why that is. I'm not sure if it's an assessment issue, if it's a, more citizens are escrowing, and so they're just taking out more money than what their tax bill was, but there just seems to be a large number of refunds going out this year compared to previous years. The mayor can speak for it. Would you sign 300 and something property tax payments just last week?
Just that one sitting.
And that's just in 1 week.
So yeah,
there's another 200 and something the week before.
Right.
So
it's well over 500 and some, and it's I know it's a pleasure. Don't get me wrong. It's not a pleasure, but it is something that's just a lot. There's a lot going on with this.
Yeah, so it's starting to slow down though. And then utility bills just went out 2 weeks ago. So we've been working on that. And then some additional updates. January is the month that we do payroll W-2s, 1099s. We just got all of that information for 1099 submitted today. I have been working with the police department specifically and the fire department. They don't do a lot of outside miscellaneous receivables and invoicing, but I believe that it's important for the finance department to handle the outgoing invoices. I know we do it for solid waste and other miscellaneous receivables, but as these departments are invoicing out of their own departments, we typically don't receive notice until the end of the year when we're asking them if there's any outstanding receivables to put on the tax bill. And I just think that it's more beneficial that if all of it is done through finance, we have a better handle on it. So I know the police department had sent out some bills to the Rock for tacos and tequila, and then for the Christmas, the Enchant. And so those have went out through the finance department, and that seems to work well. They just send us all of the documents, and we produce the invoice and send it out, and then we receive the payment. And so I plan on going forward working with the other departments to handle that process all through finance. So more to come on that. 2024 budget is done. I have finally completed the books. That took a significant amount of time, but you guys received your book today, so we don't have to worry about that on the future agenda items. And then just an update on myself engaging on many discussions. We have a lot of future projects coming up. We just finished in November 28th, the 2 borrowings that we did, the bonds and the notes for the capital projects, the DPW storage, cold storage building, and then the water tower project. We have, specific projects coming up, an additional TID that was just put in place, and more future development. So that just ends up taking up a lot of my time. And I believe that was it. Other than I just had stated before the meeting started that, now it's jumping into audit and the circular motion of everyday tasks, audit, budget, taxes, audit, budget, taxes. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have about what's going on.
And just a couple of things. First of all, thank you for doing that with the police department and incorporating the other departments as well. For those that weren't aware, sometimes like police department would send out an invoice and there were no terms or payment dates, right? Because that's not their business. So now everything will be consistent, which is great. Question for our administrator. Up in the top in the background, we're looking at the 3/4 time FTE payroll clerk. And I know a couple months back you were looking at ways that we might be able to streamline and have savings and things like that. Is that an area we might be able to realize some savings through software as opposed to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of ways that software could help us. The ClearGov with the budgeting books, that would have been a huge help. And as Danielle said, that's extensive time. I cannot speak to the cashiers. I know that there is software that's available that could help us in different areas, though, and assist with some of those day-to-day operations.
No, the software that we approved.
ClearGov,
Yes.
yep.
But that's
for
not-
2025. Yeah, that's 2025.
I think what you're stating though, and we've had some demos going on with other payroll companies that might be able to integrate with our BSNA and possibly ClearGov to help eliminate a lot of the payroll clerk's time. I mean, not to eliminate the position, but we're still doing 250 employees on spreadsheets.
Yeah,
And each payroll,
Excel.
she has piles and piles of spreadsheets to go through that takes her almost 40 hours a week just to do payroll. And it just gets to be extensive. And I remember her and I talking about, what ways can we streamline some of this that might be more electronic. And so, like I said, I think that there's been some demos going forward with ADP and some other companies where we are looking to use more electronic services with our payroll than the manual.
As long as it's going to require a shift, well, now I got to spend all these hours evaluating and things like that. But if we can make an improvement here, that would be great.
To speak to that, we have ADP currently, but we didn't roll out many of the offerings. We kind of have like the basic. If we look into other offerings that they have, we could help eliminate a lot of the unnecessary papers, if you will, the paperwork for Cheryl, and streamline her job for sure and make things a lot easier, I'm certain. So it just comes down to having the money in the budget, and then because everything was so busy at the end of the year and even now, finding time to sit down, walk through those demos, see how much it's going to cost, and see if it's something that we can realistically implement.
Our biggest issue with it is the amount of manual labor that she takes in making sure that each person, especially on the fire departments and the police department, that their contracts are being adhered to with the payroll system. And there's a lot of manual manipulation because most of these payroll softwares they're not beneficial for municipalities where we're using, I think she says it's like California schedules for fire and this specific schedule for police. And so getting these softwares to integrate with every single department policy that we have has been the most challenging, which is why it's been on finance's radar for many, many years, but it's just never been able to fully be implemented because of all of the challenges that we have with the policies in place with each department.
And to speak to that, part of what we were doing to combine it with HR, right, and look at how we can make things more efficient, streamlined. And one of the software programs we were looking at was CBIZ, because they can program it specific to our municipality and our needs. And then we kind of set that on the side to review what ADP can offer because we're already currently with them.
And BSNA software doesn't have modules or supporting programming on payroll?
If they did, we didn't purchase it, I don't believe.
I honestly haven't looked much into that because we've had ADP for so long, but it's definitely something we can look into.
I would be surprised if they don't, because every city, what's your largest expense?
Payroll.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
80% of ours.
All right, any other comments?
Well,
Yeah,
it's,
there's-
you know, that's.
Two other things, actually. It's my understanding we have a policy or a procedure for, like, when the tax money is coming in, it's held in an account and then transferred over to interest-bearing account.
Yes.
short-term.
Yep.
What is the policy for that?
I would have to pull it for you. I don't know it off of the top of my head.
My understanding is that there's 3 people on the list that the bank can call and get the okay to authorize that.
Mm-hmm.
And they're still calling the old mayor, so you may want to get that changed with the bank.
Okay.
And then the other.
I would be surprised that that wasn't done, but I will definitely look into that. Thank you.
Good point.
I got a voicemail and I heard what the voicemail was and,
Well, thanks for bringing that forward, because that's ridiculous.
yeah, so. And then the only other thing I was gonna just add is you're asking for if there's ways for the committee to offer improvements in efficiency of policy. I guess that's my question I was gonna ask.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to help you with some of these things to possibly take a little bit of the load off or do some evaluations for you or things like that? Is there things we as a committee can do to help?
Well, I can look into it and bring something forward at the next meeting. I don't really have anything off the top of my head that I can think of. Most importantly, just continue to work with my team. They're very, very helpful. And I know that one of my downfalls is taking on too much work because I have a hard time pushing it off to other people. Delegation is tough when you're still learning and going through the processes yourself. So it's hard for me to delegate things to other people, and I end up taking on more than I can handle because I feel that it's my way of learning, is I need to learn it myself before I can delegate it to somebody else. So it's more internal than
But I think, one of the things that Danielle and I had talked about last night was having an idea of, so annually we have deadlines, we have processes that we are hitting every year. Having a better idea of when those times are coming up from our team, from all of you, what have you, wherever we can get the assist of knowing what's coming in advance is a huge help, because oftentimes we are kind of hearing about it in the 11th hour, and it just makes it so difficult for the two of us to kind of pull something together in the 11th hour.
There's a lot of resources out there. The DOR has their yearly municipal calendar that I have at my desk, and so I try and follow that. But there are just things that you don't know until they've already come up or they're about to be coming up, and you're like, oh man, had I known this a little bit ahead of time.
Right.
But it's hard to determine those things almost until they come up, and then you put it on your next year's calendar so that you know.
Right. Institutional
So,
knowledge is, people, there are a lot of people that have been here for a long, long time. So, them sharing their institutional knowledge is a huge lift. And I think the other thing that we had talked about is we're looking to implement as a help to our annual budget process is to look to pull quotes from insurance companies and bring those in earlier, so that way we can line it up and bring it in at the appropriate time for the budgeting process. And then the same with payroll and pay increases in that respect, and kind of just look to do those things earlier, so that way we're not trying to do sort of like a catch-all at the end after we've already gone through the entire process. It's just, I think it's just going to be one of those things that as we experience it, we'll know,
Yeah.
and then we'll learn. And next year, when we go through all these things, it'll be easier. And, as time goes by and we continually do things, it'll just, it's things that you would find in any job.
And to your point, Ed, like I said, you don't know until you know. So I had just asked that, when in looking in our policies and our procedures, I've noticed for my department specifically, there's not a financial policy manual that we have. We don't have like this big document that says these are the deadlines, this is when things are due, this is how this procedure is supposed to be done. So I've asked that my team, going forward, that each task that they do, I know it can be tedious and time consuming, but I think it's important for us to know exactly how each task is done. And so, I said, take some time, we'll all come and talk like April, May, after you've had some time to do, your first quarter tasks and all of that. And just write me a step-by-step procedure on how to do it so that I know that if something happens to you, or it just in general, that anybody off of the street, Kelly can come in, we can make sure payroll's done, we can make sure things are ready for the audit if somebody ends up sick, just having those procedures and those policies in place so that anybody can view them, anybody can take over if need be, will be very beneficial too. So it's not something necessarily you could do, but myself in asking for those things to be done will help me.
That's good that you're looking at this stuff. When I retired, I went through our annual program of work, and then I put together the calendars, and you didn't get the benefit of having that done for you, so it's good that you.
I have resources, absolutely, and Paul has been incredible to me, and he helps keep me on task as well on what needs to be done and when things are coming up. And I just, like I said, I just keep updating my calendar as things come up, and then I know for next year. So
Are we getting to the point where we can start weaning ourselves off on relying on Paul? Or?
I would say yes, but I can say that I haven't used him as much as he's been available, whether it's been, his personal needs or my personal needs. We're just basically to a point where he's on an on-call type basis. He still comes in pretty much on Wednesdays, but like I said, it's if there's a time I don't need him, if I don't have any work for him to help me on, or if I just have small questions where I know I'm not going to need him for a couple hours, I just shoot him a call or an email, and he helps out that way so that, I'm using him as needed, and he's not just sitting here. So.
Yeah, I don't recall a budget or a deadline, and I just don't like open-ended things as principles.
I agree. Yeah. So there's money in the 24 budget, but I didn't anticipate using him. As him and I have talked, it's pretty much been get me through the full audit season, the first couple weeks of getting into the budget. But now that I've done the budget by myself, now that I've done the property taxes by myself, I shouldn't need his assistance other than, like I said, maybe a phone call or a text here and there.
Super.
After we get through the audit. So
I might have one question, Danielle. I know in the past there's been some discussion about this tax season and the amount of cash collections that we take in. Is that still a significant portion of the transactions? I guess I was just kind of curious back at the time already when I heard that, and as the banking industry, which I spent decades in, continues to evolve, why that needs to be, or maybe we need to look at it differently. Instead of charging somebody $8 for sending a worthless check out, maybe we ought to incent them and say you get a $10 discount if you pay them on ACH or something.
yeah, that's absolutely
Or,
something we can look
something
into.
to that effect. I don't know what, I mean, I can't fathom why somebody would stand in line in the hallway with a wad of cash to pay their taxes, but it sounds like it happens.
All the time. Yeah,
I stood
you
in
would be
line, loved it.
out the door.
I didn't
the
even
lines,
pay my
but
water bill because I didn't want to stand in line. I mean, in person, I paid it online and paid a service charge to get it done because it was on my mind at the time.
Danielle, what is the service charge?
$2 something?
That
It's-
one
it's
was,
really,
it
really
was
low.
$3.50 because there was an extra of something taxed on there.
There
this
was,
time,
yeah,
tacked
so
on
there was
there.
a change. We have US Bank for our things like dog licensing and that kind of stuff, but property taxes, we switched this year to VPS, which charged a little bit more to the user, but it was more user friendly and there was more options. So when we had US Bank, you could only pay with a debit card or a e-check, I believe, were the two, or ACH or e-check were the options. Where here you were able to pay with, way more options. I want to say one of them was like Apple Pay, or maybe not, but it was, there's just other functions out there. Credit card, debit card. I don't think that we had that option before.
But the credit cards aren't be paying a fee then?
Yeah.
There was
that's-
a fee.
That's why it was $3.50 because I just have it
But
set up
that's,
that way.
$3.50 is for a credit card as well? Won't the credit card companies charge more than that for us?
It's a percentage.
Pardon me?
Yeah, that was for the water bill. I don't know because I asked for my taxes, but
Yeah.
2.5%.
Yeah, on the credit card side for taxes, I guess people can do whatever. they
Yeah,
want.
I would
Right.
say
It's
most
not-
of we didn't get many
Yeah.
credit card payments,
too
and we
expensive.
typically don't.
Mhm.
Debit card is a fixed fee, but the credit
Yeah.
card is.
yeah.
Correct.
That's why we're banking partners, and US Bank is, or whomever, not that they're the only one, but it just seems to me that, we could explore, other alternatives.
Mhm.
You can bring in ACH payments for pennies.
Yeah.
And we could incent taxpayers to do that and, get all of that stuff done
Mhm.
electronically. Standing in front of their line, nobody going to the bank, nobody having account cash.
Right.
Just,
Makes it more secure too,
Yeah.
and less
Chase-
of a
Chase
libby.
is very aggressive in that field. So Chase Bank, which is great that we've got a Chase branch here, so Chase as a whole, they're very aggressive with that.
So VSP was part of the whole land nav catalyst conversion thing, and
Correct.
basically they were already working with them, so it just made sense to move over there. I have to think that there's.
Plus, there
to
was
your
no
point.
charge to the city. Was another reason we were charged $100 a month to use US Bank. There's no charge to the city to switch to VPS.
well, and
VPS.
that would seem to be a logical step down the road.
Mhm.
But they've got to get their P's and Q's, it sounds like.
Absolutely.
In order for us to do the
Yeah.
calculations and right, it sounds like they've got their hands full already, but you may just want to keep
Yes.
that on your agenda list to push them or keep pushing that, because it just seems like we should be able to go in an automatic.
Yeah.
Or not, or, use the technology, solution.
Right, yeah, because I didn't want to stand in line to pay a water bill. And
And most people think about it as they would rather spend their time in a line than pay the $3 fee. So it's how can we incentivize them to
Right.
Yeah.
to pay online? I know a lot of municipalities are obviously dealing with trying to move their citizens to online payments. So, but yes, I will keep that on the forefront.
All right, anything else from anybody? Department related? Well, thank you for that update. If not, let's move on to item number 5. I think that's talking about some of the
The ARPA funds.
ARPA funds, COVID related.
Yeah, so I just wanted to state that, we are running on a timeline as to when we need to use and expend these ARPA funds. Coming into this, there was an appropriation for roughly half of the ARPA funds to be used for the fiber optic network project, and then also the updating of the phones throughout the city buildings. And that being said, Glenn, the city engineer, had a talk with our IT director and gave him a number of about $1.7 million. That's pretty much where the final number will be for the fiber optic project. And so coming forward with what sort of options can we look into for the rest of the use of the $2 million that we have in ARPA funds. Go ahead.
I just wanted to, that project, is that the one that's cooperative with the school district in Waukesha? Okay,
Yes.
I thought it was. And how is that coming along? I mean, are we getting there? Is it near
I
completion?
believe it's almost done.
Yeah.
So do we have it operational already, or?
No, today there was fiber optic lines laying around my cubicle as they were trying to get things wired here at City Hall,
Mhm.
so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in no time it'll be done, but that being said, we have to have our remainder of the ARPA funds encumbered by the end of 2024. So looking at future ways, there was some talk about the rest of the money being used for the water tower project, which we have borrowed in a bond for. We're also using impact fees for that project, and then with talking with Glenn, this was another project that came forward, so I felt it was appropriate to come here and see what your guys' recommendation was as far as projects for the ARPA money.
Well, and I just found out about one that we didn't even have much time to talk about that would be eligible for ARPA as well. That maybe we could spend time talking about if there's a decision on what to do. But we are looking to work with Johnson Controls on bringing significant updates to the city municipal buildings. And they have a proposal on 4 of them, and 4 of the buildings. And part of that in our conversation was that ARPA funds could be used to support that if we had any that are left over.
Yeah, so there's many projects, but that's
Yeah.
something we'll have to discuss.
Talking about HVAC and
For the library.
Talking about what they refer to as envelope, so like new windows, doors, running new systems, boiler, AC, chillers, security system, which we are in desperate need of, that we don't have. So solar panels on the roofs, so that way we can move away from spending so much in utility costs, and then be able to be self-sustaining on that aspect. And then I think like that at a minimum, it's projected it would clear up. It would be like 20%, 30% savings at a minimum on the utility piece of it alone. So,
Yeah, it'd be great. My question to Glenn was, are there any items on our capital improvement system that we could help with these two rather than putting it towards a water tower?
Mhm.
I understand the need for the sewer here,
Yeah,
but I did question, I guess you're saying that we can fund the whole thing and partially assess these people?
If we don't have enough, we could assess these people, yeah. So typically, on a project like this, we would assess the adjacent property owners, but this is really mostly to help the city, DPW. We had a project for, as you're aware of, the cold storage building that we bid out. Project was just way too expensive. Part of that reason was because we had to run sewer up to get sewer, but there's other reasons why that was over budget. We're redesigning that so we can do a small addition to the DPW building. But in the meanwhile, this holding tank that so DPW's built in, I believe, 93, and it's been on a holding tank ever since. So in addition to flushing toilets and washing trucks that go to this tank and eventually have to get pumped out, we're aware that there are some leaks or holes somewhere in the line, so it's filling up with groundwater. So we're pumping this tank out at least once, if not 3 times a week. So a few years ago, this was about $125 a tank. Now they're charging us $180 every time we do it. Zurn Building Products has the same issue right there. We just really need to get sewer. So fortunately, there is a way to serve this with sewer. Be very helpful as far as our utility costs. It's over $10,000, if not $15,000 a year. We will be spending soon for just sewer. So.
Well, this is the site that's being eyed for the new fire station, correct?
It has been, so.
that's changed.
So, yeah, so that has been discussed. So there was the big red square you see holding tank somewhere in that area, but this could serve that in the future. But that's, quite honestly, that's a secondary concern right now. That would help, because our holding tank is right there. So we would start the sewer right there. I'd make sure it's deep enough that we could serve a fire station if and when, or if it's ever built. But this is really for DPW, so.
Yeah, to the fire station piece of it, if we were to move Station 2, we would lose that land because that land is county-owned land and it is specific to the use of the fire station. So it, I know that there's been some conversations about potentially making Fire Station 1 bigger and better to service more of this area, and also renovate it. We have quite a bit of issues with the station. You know, as all of you know, these people live here when they're working there, living there, and there's mold in walls and you know, stuff like that just, it doesn't sit well with me. That was part of the whole Johnson Controls proposal, was to include the fire station, and then we had talked about maybe that should be a separate project that they work on if we were to look at potentially, instead of building a new building or moving one, that we expand this one.
If we could just go back to what
Yes,
Tom's talking
go
about
ahead.
and not talk about the firehouse anymore.
So, yeah, I mean, the sewer, it would serve the DPW building, and then the one on the southeast corner of the DPW site, again, it would serve a future storage building that we need someday. But in addition, the side benefit was there's a Highway Restaurants notorious for their sewer issues. They have to, whenever time they have to replace their mound system, it's like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, I've been told, so they've done it multiple times. So that would help those folks right there too. So this is a very much a needed project. The water main, a few years back, the master plan showed a large water main going on 76th Street. We had a lot of pushback from the residents. They did not want to be assessed for it. So to make that happen, the developer paid for the project, but came down, well, it's 80th Street, but he left I want to call it choke point. So we need to convert that 8-inch water main to a 16-inch water main. Again, the documentation is for this ARPA funding. Everything I saw is water, sewer, and broadband was what the purpose of this was for. So this is water and sewer. I think it's very much needed. And with your blessing, I'd like to take this to common council and go ahead and proceed on getting the design done so we can get this spent this year. And not to say that the water tower does not need money, but there's also, I'm not sure how we can spend that much money this year to meet that deadline and the deadline that she has with the bonding. So from those standpoint, it works well to spend on this situation.
So you would anticipate a construction timeline for '24 as well?
Yes,
on
sir.
this?
Yeah, I could get it designed very quickly. We'll get this bid and constructed this year.
But you still got another $1 million on top of that, right?
That could be applied towards the
water
water
tower.
tower. The water tower is a good 2-year process. So I've been told that the water line will get constructed pretty much functional by the end of March. And then water tower, I don't have a schedule yet, but we're having a pre-con meeting the next couple of weeks, so I'll find that out soon. But they will spend a significant amount of money this year, but you really won't see it coming out of the ground until probably next year because of trying to get the steel and that sort of thing. So if that timing doesn't work, then I'll be back talking to Danielle about maybe another option.
So
Yeah, like I said, we have to encumber these funds by 2024, and it has to be spent and complete by 2026. And so when we were putting the budget together and anticipated using ARPA funds for the water tower project, there has just been, it's been up in the air as to funding and the timeline, and then like Glenn said, coming to the realization of having to use the bond proceeds within a certain amount of time, and just figured that maybe we could allocate some of the ARPA funds to something else in order to make sure that we get the use that we get. Otherwise, we have to pay it back, anything that's
If
unspent.
this isn't enough, I can think of plenty of sewer and water projects that need to get done. So
Is there another round of that funding behind this one from the federal government, and the whole COVID?
there's a new election coming up.
Yeah, I've not seen anything or heard of.
So this is the last of it, because wasn't there a 2-year, didn't we get it
So
2
we
years
got-
in a row?
It was the full awarded amount at $3.7 million, and we got half of it at
Oh,
22
okay.
and half in
It
23.
came-
Divide the payment.
Yes.
Came in installments?
Yeah.
Okay, thank
So-
you.
So we borrowed money through bonds for the water tower project.
Correct.
And how does applying the ARPA funds affect that?
We did not borrow the full amount needed, so some of that's coming out of the water utility.
So there would be a savings in interest, but we can't identify what that is yet?
Well, we borrowed $2.9 million towards the $7.5 million project, with the use of 51% of it being used with water impact fees. And then the remaining was a combination of any ARPA funds that could be applied and or the significant amount of cash on hand that we have in the water utility. That was why the bond was such a lower amount, is because we wanted to use the water impact fees and the cash on hand that we had.
Thanks.
Mhm.
My question is about the assessment for the adjacent properties for the sewer fees. Since it seems like we have other projects and other needs that the ARPA funding could go toward, is it really the most advantageous use of the money to not do these assessments and save the ARPA funds then for some of the other projects?
Well, again, I could find lots of projects, TID 8's got some utility projects I could do, those kinds of things, but,
Yeah, it's not to say you
Yeah.
couldn't use some of the ARPA money and then still special assess. I mean, there's an abundance of use for this art. It's just, like I said, what can we encumber by the end of 2024? That's our deadline. So coming forward with as many options as possible, and
I
then
just want to, we have a mechanism to get this money in our normal process.
Yes.
So if there are other projects that we're short on money for that the ARPA funding can cover, I don't think it's the best use of the ARPA funding to say that we're not going to collect this money when we normally could.
so Zur and I've had a little conversation, not about assessing them, but I think that they would be willing to be assessed something.
Are the 76th Street ones, are those vacant parcels, or who owns
So,
that?
so Hideaway Restaurant is, which one is that?
It's right in lunch today.
I thought I put the address for the Hideaway in here.
you
So-
did
so one of those-
9643.
9643. So the 47, almost $48,000 assessments for Hideaway. So granted, you have to spend $15,000 to $20,000 on a mound system every time. That's a lot of money.
That's
So-
a huge amount of money. You have to be very, very careful because we went down that roadway before.
And the rest of those, I think some of those are people living there, even though they're zoned commercial. So
Schweitzers?
imagine if, I don't know who the other owners are, but, so someone living in a house, even though you're zoned commercial, that's a, $30,000, $18,000, $42,000.
Huge.
Is that what held up the project before?
That was a difficulty with the water project.
Like
yes.
6 years ago.
You can still do some assessments though and still use the ARPA funds for this project?
We could, you could, maybe pay for half or so. So as a city, what I would do is I would at least pay for the city part out of ARPA funds. And then maybe, we could, a percentage, half or 3/4 or something.
Because I think, it's not a best use of funds that would otherwise benefit the whole city to allocate it to these specific property owners.
So some of the other projects that I mentioned today, projects, again, those are TID projects that conceivably other folks would eventually pay through the businesses.
Like the future, any future projects coming up? Or
The other sewer project that comes to mind is right across the road. That Karma is coming across the road, and I'd like to extend it further to the west. But again, that's a TID project when other people are, would be assessed for it. Pretty much every time the city does a utility project, we typically assess someone for it.
Right.
This is just an opportunity to get a project done that we don't have to assess anyone. I could.
That's fair to the other people who normally get assessed.
So,
And this is a big ticket though, John.
think on the fly,
Huge ticket.
discussion on the water tower project. So we bid this out a year ago, and it was the water tower and the water line to connect to it came all the way from, we'll say Target, all the way down to St. Martin's. To make the project affordable, I cut out the water line to the south. I could very easily add that back into it, and we could build that as part of the ARPA funds. We could do that fairly quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, that sounds like a better idea.
One of the things that was the obstacle is assessing adjacent owners, and we passed a special ordinance to, I don't want to say forgive it, but at least indefinite deferment for folks that don't connect to it. So,
A little different in this case though, because it was kind of a special circumstance that matched another circumstance where we did a similar thing over, right? Like Kayla's, so.
sort of,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah, this is different than that, and I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
it's a large chunk of change for some of those property owners.
Huge.
It's just, it's,
If I could figure out how to have our current contract tack on another $1 million to extend the water line south, without having to rebid it, I could start, next month, but, I may have to bid it to actually make that happen.
yeah, I would think, I would be comfortable with, if we wanted to move this forward and then let, council, I guess, haggle over that assessment piece of it, I don't.
Right.
I
Well,
just-
you got a dilemma at a city-owned facility. I mean, you're gonna have to do some remediation or some repair or.
I love this idea because I'm going to be spending 180 multiple times a week to pump that tank.
And that's ridiculous. We understand.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about Johnson Controls and controlling the building and so forth, but I mean, this is an ongoing expense that, it'd be different if you were gonna abandon that site or, you're saying, hey, we're leaving in, 3 years or whatever the deal is, but I mean, whether, this gains any further traction, I mean, that's the DPW site for the city
For a long time.
for a long
Yeah.
time, right? I mean,
Decades.
Yeah, this is gonna have to be addressed one way or the other.
And the replacement of the 8-inch water main with a 16-inch, that's a project I cannot assess. I just need to do that to alleviate a chokehold. But that's only,
It's a smaller part.
What was it?
that's only a $250,000 project.
Based on these numbers, the biggest beneficiary is the school district. And they will have to, I think they should pay what they need to pay for water and for sewer, just like any other developer.
Right.
I mean, if there was a subdivision going in there, would we say, hey, guess what, we're gonna do this for you for free?
To make this happen, I do need the extension of 80th Street right-of-way down to the Park Circle Drive. So I didn't put that in here, but I would strongly suggest that we get the school to donate that in return for not having being assessed. It's kind of a nice trade-off. So we would have a right-of-way when all is said and done, but in return, we would put the,
Is that a quid pro quo in terms of value
no, it's, I don't know, no.
Perhaps it could be the donation
though?
of the right of way and
It's mitigated.
Maybe
And-
donation and,
donation and.
yeah.
Any
If I had,
further-
if I had to pick, I would just do the utilities on 80th Street. The Hideaway corner could be put off with something else. Again, I would suggest that maybe I should talk to the property owners and find out how their true feelings are, but I think if they see those numbers, it's gonna be difficult to sell. The school and
Reasonably
Durant,
so.
I think, could be talked into budgeting a 12-year payment at 6% interest, but.
I think ultimately we just,
Well, if
we
you
need
need
to
these
come up with
property
some
owners-
use for it so we don't lose it, and so.
And if you need these property owners to do the project, then, you know, then there's some incentive to maybe lessen the assessment or something, but to pay it all, I don't. That's.
Maybe a policy to offset it to something that maybe the common council might deem a reasonable assessment.
Yeah.
What's the timeline for Johnson Controls?
So
Well,
this
do we have to
month,
bid that out?
yeah, this month it's a request for qualifications process or cooperative, and they actually can do the DPW too. This is just the first phase, the chunk that we were looking at doing, just because it's all right here. So they know that there's other municipal buildings and sites that also need assistance, and you know, they get involved with water and sewer as well. So my timeline right now that I have is for January, working on the request for qualifications, and then we move forward, and they have a timeline of June of this year starting to move forward with the actual contract work.
The actual work itself?
Yes.
So we
Yeah, the
could-
construction work.
So we could, when we see the numbers, allocate that within this year
Mm-hmm.
and have it spent by the deadline.
Yes.
And we'd be upgrading our facilities for
Right.
years in the future.
Right.
New Berlin School District has solar panels. That was a great deal for them.
Mhm.
Worked out very well.
Well, we've got some immediate concerns with the library's chiller, and that's, you know, $20,000 that we have, I believe, budgeted for it, right? And that's like a repairs piece of the puzzle. The roofing is going to need to be redone because it's at its end life cycle. The boilers, the same thing. You know, the building was built over just around over 20 years ago, so everything's kind of coming due. But my hope was that we would do phases, and this was just, like I said, the initial phase. They are aware, like most municipalities, we have a lot of projects and just not enough time and money to get to them all. And with Johnson Controls, it would be turnkey, and it would be everything gets done at once. You know, all LED lighting, all solar where we can. We're using security that we don't have right now, and it would bring everything up to speed and done immediately, and then we would be seeing the return on that with the savings in, they apply for the grants for us, but also the savings with the utilities. I mean, the amounts that we spend are pretty high.
Historically, we'll have that. This needs to be replaced. And
Right.
it just keeps getting pushed farther and farther and farther. until
Right.
we have to. This would be a great opportunity. I would be very much in favor.
Yeah, I mean, and I do want them to look at the DPW building and include that. You know, if that's something maybe we switch out for phase one with the Fire Station 1 and look at Fire Station 1 becoming a bigger project, like an actual remodel and expansion. It's not something that can't be done.
No, it is a significant cost, though, that we would have to bring forward to the council, millions of dollars. So, and I haven't talked to the finance team to determine what's ARPA eligible and what's not, and what could be incorporated. So I think that there's still some work
yeah.
to do there.
Yeah,
So
but I mean,
this was
those-
just one project to bring forward. And like I said, I know the council has to make a determination for what the use is going to be. Not that we can't continue to bring projects forward, but this was one on the agenda.
Just to maybe move this along, I kind of personally like the idea of maybe being able to support a couple of these with a co-funded, or, you know, the discount, the assessments, or
Right.
whatever. Because, I mean, it seems like you know, we've got to deal with the city-owned real estate needs of this parcel as well. The other thing is, and this is changing subjects kind of completely, but we are in a position with our fund balance where we're above our target range as well, correct?
Correct, yep.
So as we move forward, I think it behooves us that we need to put those resources to a valid use, I think, as well, and get that back in our target range. Because to me, that's a conflict. I mean, you collect the taxes, you know, for
Absolutely.
budgeted expenses or items, and then, you know, to the point that they're not used, you know, that's a mismatch.
Yep.
Any further discussion, comments? I mean, obviously, this is gonna be in front of the council or, you know, council discussion, but I think some good points. Anything else to share from anyone?
So clarification, so the direction would be,
I guess that was gonna be my next point too. Does somebody wanna make a motion to forward this to the council? Or, I guess what's the pleasure of the group? I think we could add it with the adjusted, or recommended, tax assessment, you know, as well. Maybe at a discounted rate, or, you know, how they wanna
I'd be willing to
pursue
go
it.
along with that, yeah.
You know, or maybe you put a dollar amount on, you know, hey, we'll put up to $1 million on this project and $1 million, you know, the other 750 over goes here, or
So
divide.
about 50% of the assessment there.
Yeah,
So recommend the city pay the full portion of theirs, but 50% towards these properties special assessment
Right.
to be covered with the ARPA funds as well?
and the school could be offset with the donation of property.
And, right? Donation of property and a dollar amount?
And the dollar amount, yeah, not quick pro quo. Gotta have, you know, that.
So instead of
assessment,
charging them
easement is
50%,
not
we could
worth
charge them
$120,
20% or 25% in the donation or something like that.
yeah. And there too, I have no idea what their
Right.
Lab
I mean,
use.
there's a little bit of clarification that needs to be done on these stuff.
Right,
As
but
of
it's a
couple-
good start.
I will tell you, a couple years ago, they looked at putting the schools along 92nd Street and all the athletic fields in this location where they would use we were going to share a trailhead for a trail, but it also could be a bathroom for their athletic facilities. About a month ago, I talked to some folks at the school, and that's all up in the air. They're redoing everything, so they don't know.
Right. But if they own the land and if they're looking at future development, they'll need it at some point. That will not be a if, it'll only be a when. So,
Okay, so the motion will be to move forward with this project to the council with the anticipation of a specific percentage of special assessment, the donation and percentage of school district, and then what about the remainder of the ARPA funds? Because option one was allocate them to the water tower project. Should it be to just
That's all.
further pursue other projects?
Probably,
Or-
because
Yeah.
why do we have to commit to everything? Maybe we may come up with something else in next.
Because $1 million will give me everything I'm looking at right here, so that's roughly half the
Mm-hmm.
funds.
I mean, the fallback would be if we can't find anything, then we go to the water.
Yep, and that's fair.
Are we saying 50% for the other, except the school?
Well, I mean, whatever reasonable, I'm not really in a position to say what's the
No,
right
yeah, I
percentage.
think the council could probably determine a better percentage, and maybe Glenn
I'll have
could provide some better
I'll have a conversation
information.
with the 76th Street addresses and maybe have a recommendation for council. February 21st.
Are you making that motion, John?
John, you wanna be the author of that motion? Since we kinda got it all twisted around here.
Well, I'm not elected official, so I don't know if it's appropriate.
You know,
This is just the committee, all we're doing is making a recommendation to the council.
Sure.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Everybody comfortable with the discussion and Danielle, I think you've got it, basically moving this forward, but with requiring some level of tax assessment or special
Special assessment, yep.
project. All right, any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, that will get referred to the council.
I don't know if you wanted to stay for the
Thank you very
second
much.
part or no.
No.
Strong
Good night.
Thanks, Glenn.
Then I think next we have a discussion, which is an annual rite of passage, I think, from our friends at the sewage district.
Correct. Yep, so I basically took the template that's been used by previous finance directors and updated all of MMSD's information. MMSD has proposed a 4.4% increase for residential customers. We put a 7% increase in the budget, and that was due to the city engineer, telling me that MMSD was going to request an overall 7% increase, so that was the increase that we put in the budget. But now that I have the full user charge information from MMSD in their annual manual, I input it into the 2024 worksheet, and the new proposed rate would be the 4.43% increase for quarterly residential billing. And the new rate would be $74.76 a quarter. As you can see on the next page, I mean, it just slowly increases. We have two outstanding debt issuances. One is for the clean water loan that we get a principal and interest repayment from MMSD on, from the Ryan Creek Interceptor agreement that we have. And then we're still paying on the 2021 Industrial Park Lift Station. That was just brought forward at council to finish that project that had some delays, and so it's moving forward into completion in 2024. But again, we still have to finish paying the principal and interest on that. Those are the two debt issuance that we have for the sewer department. And the motion would just be to have these as the new sewer rates for 2024.
Questions, comments? It kind of is what it is.
Yep.
Motion to refer this to council?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the 2024 recommended sanitary sewer user rates. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you for putting that together.
You're welcome.
Looks like next we have some financial results for November.
So I know we haven't had meetings, and the December numbers are not finalized yet. So I wanted to at least give you an update through November. I mean, I can quickly go over some of this. It's pretty detailed and outlined for you, so if you have any questions. I didn't see much of a concern. We have, some high interest income coming in throughout our investment portfolios and those funds that we have. We closed TID 3 in 2022, closed TID 4 in 2023. The remaining fund balance of TID 4 will be distributed this year. Right before the audit is done, I have Paul coming in to help finish that with me. You'll see the overall consolidating TID funds. There's some concern with the tax rate declining at such a rapid rate that we're just not seeing the tax increment that we had anticipated years ago. So the fund balances just are sitting where they're at for now until we see more growth. I know TID 7 has no more development. There's minimal TID 5 development in the works. There's still anticipated development in TID 6 and TID 8. If you guys just have any questions, like I said, I don't know if I need to go through each fund individually, but I'd be happy to if you wanted.
So you said the shortfall invoices have been sent. What's the timeline for payment?
So we have shortfall invoices that were sent out for TID 5 and TID 6. TID 8 reached their threshold, so there was none anticipated for TID 8. TID 6, there was 2 of them that were sent out. One of them was paid already. TID 5 had theirs sent out that has not been paid yet, but the due date on those was January 18th. So,
I assume we're gonna be following up on that?
absolutely, yes. There was some talk about it just today on how to move forward with that.
We should
So,
not be in a situation where we're negotiating extended payments and
yeah, because I was just having a talk with the accounting supervisor today about that, you know, bond payments are due February 29th, and those are coming up quick, and we have a over $1 million shortfall in TID 5 right now, which could potentially be paid with fund balance, as Dennis had stated, since we're over the 30% threshold. But
dollars.
yep.
Is that the shortfall you're referring to on page 2 of the general comments here under the general fund? Finance Department is looking into the property tax shortfall.
No, if you go to page 6, that top line, the actual year-to-date, we should have our full tax levy amount in there. And so I had asked for some additional information on why it's not basically there was just a transfer that wasn't done, so it was a journal entry that needs to be created. We have all of the tax money, it's just it doesn't show that we collected all of our property taxes because there's an additional journal entry that needed to be done.
Oh.
So that's-
$1,795,000.
Yes,
Okay.
the August settlement, yeah.
And is there an offset then, expense-wise for that, or is that through 11 months, would that just flow down to additional surplus?
It'll just flow down to additional surplus in December, yeah.
So then, using the crystal ball, what does the end of the year look like?
I've slowly been running some reports, and it looks like there will be a deficit at the end of 2023. Not by much. It looked like a couple $100,000, but I don't want to say for sure because I don't have any audited numbers, and we're still post-dating things back to 2023 based on
Missed us?
POs and expenses coming in the first couple weeks of January. So
Danielle, I think on page 15, the recap of TID 8, I'm not sure if the spreadsheet just captured all the line items. There's the miscellaneous revenue, and I didn't know exactly or specifically what that is. We show year-to-date actual TID income through 11 months, $1,115,000. And if I go back to page 9 and look at that recap, there's that miscellaneous revenue for $874, which isn't reflected on page 15, so the numbers don't
okay, I see.
there, which you probably want to revise before you move this to or send it to the council. But what is that, or what's the miscellaneous revenue there?
I would have to look into it. I believe, if I remember correctly, it was a grant that we received. And I believe that's what it was. It was a grant from MMSD for the sewer work in TID 8. And I could see that it was just not carried over onto page 15.
$436,000 doesn't add up to $1 million.
No. Nope, so I will make sure to correct that.
Okay, I got a question on page 2, or you talk about, there were planned sales of capital assets of $1,378,000, and you've only sold $202,000. What's that all about?
Where are you looking at?
Page 6.
Okay.
Variance is $1,178,000. 176.
I must be blind.
That's investment income, I think, isn't it? Sale of gas.
Yeah, are you talking about, right,
Yeah, investment income.
1.176?
Yeah.
Okay.
Investment
yeah.
income, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what that surplus is. Was there an additional question on that?
The wrong line.
Oh, I see, okay, yeah, sale of capital assets.
Mhm.
And that I suspect will be increasing in December based on market performance as well.
Yep.
Yep, that'll help.
Yep, sure will. Thought I had one other note here to myself. We might have covered that. Oh, I had just a quick question, Danielle. What are we doing with the cash balances right now? We're using the local investment pool and we're using ADM primarily?
Correct, and I would say we don't even really use we don't use LGIP as much either. Most of our transactions are through ADM.
And what's the institutional capital management? Are we paying advisory fees there or whatever? I mean, it's $1 million. It's almost irrelevant. I just didn't know if there's any value being added there or not.
I can look at what our fees are and potentially, move it to one of the other, probably American Deposit Management. That's who we get the best bang for our buck with.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if your return rates are current there for the local month, but that's
Those are the current rates.
there's a 70 basis point difference as well. Again, it's not a huge amount, but if they're not bringing anything to the table, I don't, know that we need to. I can't recall what we used them for in the past. I mean, it looks like they've got some laddered maturities or some, I'm assuming there must be some shorter bonds or shorter CDs or whatever they're doing that are rolling over in the first quarter here of 24. But as we kind of watch the rate environment here, they're talking about cuts, but we'll see. I got a feeling they may not be as early as anticipated.
I've seen many changes just in the last
Yeah.
couple of months. Yeah.
Other comments questions about, it looks like our insurance experience hasn't been so good on the health side this year.
Yeah.
No,
And
and
we
we
had some
anticipated a
claims.
16% increase to our employees in 2024 due to the claims rates being so high.
And that's, I think that just kind of ebb and flows. So, you have a certain amount of years where everything's running smoothly and great, and then you hit a time frame where things don't run so smoothly and great. And we're at that stage right now of there's several cancer claims that have
Major claims.
Yeah, major claims that have really kind of impacted our experience.
COVID was in place.
Yeah.
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 There were some major claims we got hit with. What was that total bill that we didn't expect back in October? Was
$750,000.
$750,000 bill that we did not plan on and budget for, or could even saw coming.
Right.
So that was a big game changer.
Just an increase, to our
So-
overall expense in 2024 based on the claims rates in
Yeah.
2023.
That was
Does the stop loss go on an overall basis or by claim?
Stop loss, I believe, is by
By
claim.
claim.
It's over a certain amount. I think it's 75,000 or 85,000.
We just changed it. We
I
just
think it was
increased it by
75
10.
and it was up to 85,
I think,
I believe.
yeah. And we're looking for how we can save money. Some of these prescription drugs are astronomical in cost too. And we're working with our brokers to find out the programs where we can have some savings, because some of them are thousands upon thousands of dollars a month. My understanding is Humira is one of them. And there's, unfortunately, I believe that a lot of them don't have generics available right now, which is why they can they can do that. But we're coming into a game changer where that will be changing, and it will impact, hopefully, it'll impact us in a positive way. But again, we were looking at how could we, there were programs where we could exclude certain drugs that are really expensive, and then there were governmental programs that we could apply for and still have them covered, but not on our plan. So it'd be significantly cheaper, but it didn't work out. So, we're always looking for ways to improve upon it, but some of those big ticket items, you can't foresee those happening.
Any other comments regarding November 11-month year-to-date results?
I think, I don't know if this was mentioned or not, but with TID 6, I believe that this is the first time we have gotten payment for the taxes. Is it not correct no? Oh, I thought the developer hadn't.
No, we were having an issue with one of the developers, but we cleared that up in our meeting that we had last week.
Right. Yeah, well, that's, a new development is, yeah.
And is the new TID moving forward for Carmex?
Yes.
So that would be a 24 creation?
Correct, yeah. So we didn't put it in the budget. It was going to be a budget amendment because it hadn't been approved yet. The TID wasn't approved for creation until after the budget was approved, so.
Are they pushing dirt already down there?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Lots, walls
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, I went by there, I had to take a second look, I was like, what?
They got a little cart out there, they're actually selling Carmex something.
Just not last week because it was too cold.
Right. They're back up tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're moving.
Yeah, they're moving.
They're
I
not
mean,
messing around.
they're moving at rapid speed. They were ready for this.
And is that gonna create some available space then in the industrial park? Have they indicated what their existing facilities may or may not be?
Well, they've got
Destined.
the 4 buildings that they have, they're keeping 2 of them. And I'm not sure if they do. Yeah,
Right.
the 4 buildings, so like I was saying, they own 2, and I was not going fast enough to say that they lease 2, but they lease 2. And it's gonna be open to what they wish to do with it. They really haven't been, hasn't said what they're gonna do. But they all, they also own other land there too.
Yeah.
So, they own other land. It's a big, they've been there since 1970. They own a lot that they took advantage of early on. So this movement to that new site's huge. They're really going on. So I want to belabor it, but.
Yeah, I think they were talking about keeping one of the sites as more of like a museum type of thing because of the organ that's
Yeah, some
there.
big organisms there.
Yeah.
For sure.
And then there's a big project that we have a NDA on that part of their land, Karma's land, is like a backup, a plan B for them should plan A not work out. So that could potentially play into things.
All right, anything further? Otherwise, I guess the action here is refer this to the council with the number corrections. Unless anybody else has any other comments or suggestions? Hearing none, a motion to refer this to the council. Second. We have a motion and a second, refer the 11-month numbers to council. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. You want to run down this
Yeah.
future to-do list real quickly here?
Yeah, I didn't want to put exact meeting dates on here because I wasn't 100% sure. Debt planning for TID 9 real quick, like we just talked about. In the developer's agreement, the city will be borrowing money to help with the sewer project, the infrastructure. And in February, I have a meeting with Karma and Ellers, the financial advisor, on where we go from here with the borrowing. It looks like anticipation is April. So wanted to bring that forward to you guys when that comes. Towards the end of the year now, going over the whole 2023 city investment portfolio and OPEB portfolio, come forward with December's financials. And then next month, I will be coming forward with the budget encumbrances and the budget carryovers. I've had a lot of requests to carry over funds from 23 into 24 and then just carrying over the unused and open partial POs that we have. So have you guys look at those. And then I distributed your budget books. I wasn't sure if I'd have them ready, but I did.
All right,
Are you gonna do a budget amendments for the, unfavorable variances?
Yes. Yep. I can add that to the list too.
and I think in your comments, it sounds like landfill siting fees are still coming in where we anticipate them to be, or have kind of.
Yeah, they come in relatively close to what we budget.
They've got that facility up in Menominee Falls rocking and rolling too, from what I can tell up there.
Yeah, there had been a question a while back as to when I anticipated it to close. And I reached out to Johns and they said sometime after 2050 is the most that they could
Ooh.
give me. So
It won't be our problem at that time. I was a little too excited about that, I'm sure, but that is great though, because that was a major concern, and
yeah, we'll just have to continue to
an eye
forecast
on
what
it.
the
Mhm.
what the revenue will be for that. So
Well, it's a great source that the city enjoys, and I think the challenge is for the elected officials to use those dollars most expeditiously, you know, and I kind of, maybe it's my personal opinion, but, you know, for projects that are not reoccurring and not.
absolutely,
You know, annual,
operating expenses.
expenditures
Yeah.
more on the operating side, but the ability to create, you know, uses that benefit city and city residents for years and years and years to come.
And I
Yeah,
believe we
I
have a
agree.
policy in place that only allows a certain percentage to go towards the general fund.
Yeah, there was a while, that wasn't that many years ago, where that included none of those dollars. But then even before that, they were taking all of it in, and
Yeah.
then, you know, so we weaned off of that and got it, you know. And then when the dollars became more significant, you know, part of it was said, well, can't we, you know, does it make sense to maybe use a small amount,
Yep.
10-20% or whatever, to kind of give the citizens a, you know, an instant rebate, if you will, on current operations. So it's been quite beneficial, obviously.
So
Okay,
as
anything?
we look at these other future projects, then, not sure what's qualified, but then you'll come back with a plan for spending down that fund balance to be within the limits.
hmm Yeah, I know that's been an ongoing issue, is using the fund balance and getting it back into the parameters of the 15 to 30%, because we're well over that. But I think it is important for all of us to look at, like I said, when we have shortfalls in the TIDs and, you know, other capital expenses, that should be using that versus using it for operational issues, is something that needs to be pushed forward.
Right. Those TIDs, I mean, yeah, you look at it, I mean, it's a development activity, right? I mean, there's a risk that goes in, elected officials take that risk. And I guess it would be great if, you know, we hit on every one of them at 100% of the projected levels, and whatever reality says that just doesn't happen.
No, and the use of that, it helps the cushion of using the fund balance towards those shortfalls that are not anticipated. But ultimately, it will hurt, you know, the tax rate going forward and the citizens going forward if we don't use that either. So,
Next meeting date is February 27th. so
Correct.
you can, note that on your calendars, and unless there's anything else that the group wants to.
Over your adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. No further discussion here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.